Do you know that moment when you're in the middle of cooking, trying to stay focused, and somehow you've opened like half the drawers in your kitchen and crossed the room 6 times and still can't find the thing that you need? And you're just wondering, why does this feel harder than it should? I have definitely had a moment or two like that. And being someone who loves old-fashioned solutions, I started wondering how people managed this kind of everyday chaos in the past. Did homemakers in the 1920s and 30s deal with the same frustrations? Did they just accept it as part of life, or did they try to fix it? So I pulled out some of my vintage home economics books, of course, and I went digging. And what I found was fascinating. For over a century, home economists, designers, and even engineers were trying to make household work easier, smarter, and less physically exhausting. And not just for efficiency's sake, but so women could reclaim time and energy for other parts of life. And once I fell down that rabbit hole, I started noticing things in my own kitchen that I could adjust. So today I'm sharing a mix of vintage history, a bit of personal trial and error, and practical ways to make your kitchen feel just a little bit more peaceful and purposeful, without needing a renovation or a Pinterest perfect pantry. So if you're into vintage lifestyle, home organization, or just making things a little easier, you'll definitely want to stick around for this. And if vintage fashion, beauty, and lifestyle is your thing, then go ahead and subscribe to my channel. So let's head back to the early 1900s when industry was booming. Factories were cranking out goods at record speed, and the concept of efficiency became kind of an obsession. Businesses were looking at how to make everything faster, cheaper, and more productive. One of the key figures in this movement was Frederick Winslow Taylor. He pioneered what became known as scientific management, or the time motion studies. Basically, Taylor would watch factory workers with a stopwatch in hand, timing every little movement they made. Then he'd break down their tasks into smaller pieces and reconfigure their workspace or workflow to reduce wasted time and effort. His goal was to increase output, but it came down to shaving seconds off a task by rearranging tools or changing how someone moved. While that might sound a little intense and honestly a bit dehumanizing in the factory setting, home economists saw a lot of potential in this approach. They were like, wait a minute, what if we use this method not to squeeze more out of people, but to actually help them? So they started applying these same principles to household work. Women in academic and professional home economics fields began studying how much time it took to cook a meal, clean a room, or even just walk from the stove to the sink. They wanted to figure out how to make housework less physically demanding, more organized, and, this is important, less mentally draining too. It was really the beginning of treating domestic labor as real work, not something invisible or assumed, but something worth studying, measuring, and improving. And this shift in mindset laid the groundwork for some of the most important innovations in kitchen design and home management over the next several decades. One of the earliest advocates for bringing efficiency into the home was Christine Frederick, an American home economist active in the 1910s and 1920s. She was deeply influenced by Frederick Winslow Taylor's industrial time studies, but instead of applying them to factories, she turned her attention to the domestic sphere. Frederick published several books and articles, one of her best known being The New Housekeeping: Efficiency Studies in Home Management, published in 1913. In it, she argued that managing a home should be treated with the same seriousness and structure as managing a business. She believed that women could reclaim time and energy by rethinking how their kitchens and routines were set up. She actually conducted small-scale studies in her own home, observing how long it took to complete daily tasks and how many steps it took to move between various workstations. She charted out diagrams and flow charts, tracking things like how many extra steps a homemaker took just by storing pots in the wrong cabinet. Some of her core recommendations include preparing multiple meals at once instead of cooking every single one from scratch. So early batch cooking and meal planning. Keeping your most used items within arm's reach, and creating efficient work zones so that each task has a designated space. Frederick's work was incredibly influential in the early home economics movement and helped really set the tone for how women, and eventually designers and appliance manufacturers, thought about kitchen layouts and home management. Fun fact, she also promoted simpler decor to save cleaning time. No extra doilies, no overly ornate furniture. She was like, if I have to dust it, it better be worth it. While I agree with her on a lot of things, that one's a hard one for me. I'm definitely a maximalist. Then there's Lillian Gilbreth, who took things to the next level. She was born in 1878 and was one of the first female engineers to earn a PhD. You might recognize her from the book Cheaper by the Dozen, which was loosely based on her family life. She and her husband Frank had 12 children. Oof. And they applied efficiency principles to both work and home life. Lillian's work in the 1910s through the 1930s spanned both industrial and domestic spaces. After her husband passed away in 1924, she continued their work on her own, focusing more on how to make homes, especially kitchens, better designed for the people who use them most. She applied motion studies to household tasks like cooking and dishwashing, and came up with practical tools and design changes to save time and reduce strain. A few of her contributions were she invented the foot pedal trash can to allow for hands-free use. She helped redesign kitchens so that shelves and counters were set at ergonomic heights. She improved the layout of the refrigerator interior to better suit how people actually stored their food. Now, unlike Taylor, who focused on maximizing output, Gilbreth cared about improving quality of life. She believed that reducing the physical and mental load of housework could give women more time for education, paid work, or just plain rest. Her work helped bridge the gap between cold efficiency and human-centered design. By the 1940s, she was advising companies like General Electric on appliance design, and she even worked with the government during World War II to improve conditions in women-led factories and home front workspaces. She's considered one of the founding mothers of modern industrial psychology, and her legacy lives on every time you open a foot pedal trash can without thinking twice. Let's talk about one of the coolest and most influential kitchen designs to come out of the 20th century, the Frankfurt kitchen. It was designed in 1926 by Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky, who was Austria's first female architect. She was born in 1897 and trained in a male-dominated field at a time when women architects were extremely rare. She was hired as a part of a massive public housing initiative in Frankfurt, Germany. After World War I, the city was facing a housing crisis, and the goal was to build affordable, functional apartments for working families. Schütte-Lihotzky was tasked with designing the kitchen spaces in these new units. To do this, she studied how women moved in their kitchens, observing how many steps it took to prepare a meal and how often they had to backtrack to find tools or ingredients. She then applied principles from industrial design, especially the kind used in railway dining cars, to create what we now think of as the classic galley kitchen. Some features of the Frankfurt kitchen included built-in cabinetry with labeled drawers and compartments, a pull-down ironing board and fold-out workspaces, overhead storage bins for bulk ingredients, and a layout that minimized walking and maximized reach. It was compact, practical, and completely focused on functionality. Over 10,000 Frankfurt kitchens were installed in German housing complexes in the late 1920s and early 1930s, and the design became a major influence on modern kitchen planning. The idea of the kitchen work triangle, placing the stove, sink, and refrigerator at optimal distances, traces its roots back to this layout. Schütte-Lihotzky's kitchen was revolutionary, not because it was fancy, but because it respected women's time and labor. It treated the domestic space with architectural care, something that had rarely been done before. Okay, so after all this research, I looked at my own kitchen and realized it's basically a galley layout, just like the Frankfurt kitchen. And obviously we aren't about to renovate it. But when we moved in, I did try to make a few small changes that were based on these vintage ideas. I set up my prep tools, knives, mixing bowls, measuring cups, within easy reach of where I do my prep work. That alone cut down on so much back and forth. I store my cutting boards using a file folder holder. Say that 5 times fast. And it just takes up so much less space and I can easily grab them. I created a little baking zone in my Hoosier cabinet. I store all of my baking gear there so I can just pull everything out all at once, do the thing, and tuck it away again. I moved my mugs and tea stuff near the kettle and coffee machine. Just that alone makes my morning smoother. And honestly, even those small tweaks makes the space feel calmer, less chaotic, and much more enjoyable. Now, you don't need to design a new kitchen to make your home work better for you. Even small changes can have a big impact. But it helps to first get a clear picture of how your kitchen is currently working for or against you. Just start by paying attention. Next time you cook a meal or put the clean dishes away, just observe how you move through the space. Are you constantly walking back and forth for tools? Do you have to reach up or bend down repeatedly? Are your go-to items stored in spots that make sense, or were they just kind of placed there out of habit? You don't need to overthink it or write it all down like a formal study, unless you want to. But noticing those patterns can help you figure out what to rearrange or streamline. Here are a few simple takeaways based on vintage homemaking principles that you can try right now. Think in work zones. Group items by activity. Coffee making stuff, baking tools, meal prep gear. This cuts down decision making and movement. Reduce repetitive movement. Keep the things you use most where you use them. If you're crossing the room for measuring cups, maybe it's time to rearrange. Batch tasks. Do similar tasks at once. Wash produce in one go, prep veggies for multiple meals, or cook extra portions to freeze. Use containers to create stations. Trays or bins can act like mini zones. Think a tea station, a snack bin, or a breakfast basket. Create a weekly kitchen rhythm. This is an idea borrowed straight from vintage housekeeping guides, where each day of the week had a purpose. Monday was wash day, Tuesday was ironing, and so on. You don't have to follow it rigidly, but creating a gentle weekly rhythm for your kitchen can help remove some of the daily what now feeling. It could be as simple as Monday, you plan meals. Tuesday, clean out the fridge. Wednesday, restock pantry staples. Stick it on your fridge or inside a cabinet door. This light structure helps reduce decision fatigue and keeps you ahead of the mess. Embrace good enough tools. You don't need a specialty gadget for everything. Use the tools you love, donate the ones that frustrate you, and make your kitchen more peaceful. Add joy to the process. Efficiency doesn't have to be clinical. Light a candle, wear a cute vintage apron, or play music while you cook. Give yourself grace. These ideas aren't about perfection. They're about reducing stress. Even one small change is progress. So yeah, I definitely nerded out over this a little bit. But I think it's pretty amazing that over a century ago, women were already working to reduce burnout, improve workflow, and make home life a little more livable, long before anyone had an insta-perfect pantry. They weren't chasing perfection, they were chasing ease, and that still matters. So let me know in the comments, have you reorganized a space in your home to make life a little easier? Or is there something in your kitchen that you'd love to fix or streamline? And if you enjoyed this video, or even if I just made you think a little differently about your kitchen, I'd really appreciate a like, a hype, or a share. It helps the video reach more folks who enjoy this kind of content and lets me know that this is something that you would like to see more of. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.
Now that the muscle savers are busy, cutting down the amount of unnecessary work for women and for men, we'll all have more energy left for playtime. But there are still plenty of jobs left for the ergometer and the work-saving scientists to tackle. Think of all the energy that our charming millions spend in keeping beautiful. And if science is so darn wonderful, why doesn't some genius build a contraption like this?